The birth of Serenity Heights HOA. Nestled in the heart of a lush valley surrounded by rolling hills and whispering pines, Serenity Heights was envisioned as a sanctuary, a place where families could escape the chaos of urban life and build their dreams. Developed in the early 2000s, this suburban community boasted sprawling lawns, tree-lined streets, and meticulously designed homes that exuded charm and elegance. It was marketed as a haven of tranquility, attracting young professionals, retirees, and growing families alike who sought not just a house but a lifestyle. However, with the promise of such an idyllic setting came the need for structure. As more residents moved in, it became apparent that maintaining the pristine aesthetic and harmonious atmosphere required collective effort. Enter the Homeowners Association, HOA, a governing body created to oversee the upkeep of common areas, enforce architectural standards, and foster a sense of unity among neighbors. The HOA at Serenity Heights was established shortly after the first wave of homeowners settled into their new abodes, its charter drafted with lofty ideals of preserving property values, ensuring safety, and promoting neighborly camaraderie. At its inception, the HOA seemed like a godsend. Monthly dues were modest, covering essentials such as landscaping maintenance, snow removal during winter months, and holiday decorations that transformed the entrance gates into festive archways. Rules were simple yet effective: no parking on front lawns, no loud music after 10 p.m., and all exterior modifications, from paint colors to mailbox designs, required prior approval from the Architectural Review Committee. These guidelines were meant to preserve uniformity while allowing individual creativity within reasonable limits. For years, the system worked seamlessly. Neighbors greeted one another warmly at annual block parties, children played freely in cul-de-sacs, and disputes were rare and quickly resolved through open dialogue facilitated by the HOA board members. Monthly meetings held in the cozy clubhouse often felt less like formal assemblies and more like social gatherings, complete with coffee and homemade cookies provided by volunteer residents. The spirit of cooperation prevailed, making Serenity Heights a model community admired by neighboring developments. Yet beneath this veneer of harmony lay seeds of discontent waiting to sprout. While most residents embraced the rules, some chafed against what they perceived as overreach or micromanagement. Others questioned whether certain decisions truly reflected the will of the majority or served only a select few. Still, dissent remained muted, overshadowed by the overwhelming satisfaction of living in such a picturesque locale. For now, Serenity Heights lived up to its name, a tranquil oasis shielded from the storms of discord. But change is inevitable, even in the most serene settings. And as time passed, cracks began to form, not in the sidewalks or fences, but in the very foundation upon which the HOA had been built. Little did anyone know then how these fissures would grow into fault lines capable of shaking the entire community to its core. Shadows beneath the surface. As the years rolled on, the initial glow of unanimity in Serenity Heights began to dim, replaced by simmering tensions that slowly bubbled to the surface. What started as minor grievances over seemingly innocuous issues grew into festering resentments, exposing fractures within the community's facade of harmony. At first glance, the complaints appeared trivial, a neighbor objecting to another's brightly colored garden gnome deemed too whimsical for the neighborhood aesthetic, a dispute over weekend lawn mowing schedules disrupting Saturday morning peace, or disagreements about holiday light displays that ranged from tasteful to garish. Yet beneath these small skirmishes lay deeper concerns about fairness, transparency, and power dynamics within the HOA itself. One particularly contentious issue revolved around the enforcement of architectural guidelines. Mrs. Patricia Langley, a retired schoolteacher known for her meticulous attention to detail, found herself embroiled in a protracted battle after installing new shutters on her home. Her choice of slate gray, an elegant shade she believed complemented her white siding perfectly, was swiftly rejected by the Architectural Review Committee, ARC. According to ARC chairperson Greg Sullivan, the color violated Rule 4.3b of the HOA Handbook, which stipulated that all exterior modifications must adhere to a pre-approved palette of 5 neutral tones. Despite Mrs. Langley's protests that her selection fell well within acceptable limits of taste and practicality, the committee refused to budge. She was ordered to repaint the shutters or face escalating fines. Mrs. Langley wasn't alone in feeling targeted. Across the street, the Nguyen family faced similar frustrations when their request to add a small vegetable garden along their fence line was denied. The Nguyen's argued that the garden would enhance curb appeal and promote sustainability, aligning with broader environmental trends. However, the ARC cited Section 7.8, which prohibited any alteration that might detract from the uniform appearance of the subdivision. This decision sparked outrage among several environmentally conscious residents who viewed the ruling as short-sighted and out of touch with modern sensibilities. While some conflicts centered on specific regulations, others stemmed from broader dissatisfaction with how decisions were made. Many residents felt excluded from meaningful participation in HOA governance. Board meetings, once convivial events characterized by lively discussions and collaborative problem-solving, had devolved into tightly controlled sessions dominated by a handful of vocal members. Critics accused the board of prioritizing bureaucratic red tape over genuine engagement, pointing to instances where motions were passed without adequate consultation or debate. The lack of transparency extended beyond meeting protocols. Financial mismanagement allegations surfaced when several homeowners noticed discrepancies in budget reports. Though monthly dues remained unchanged, essential services like streetlight repairs and pool maintenance had noticeably declined in quality. Rumors circulated that surplus funds earmarked for infrastructure improvements were being diverted elsewhere, though no concrete evidence emerged to substantiate these claims. Still, trust eroded further as questions went unanswered and accountability measures remained opaque. Perhaps the most divisive incident occurred during the summer picnic, a cherished tradition intended to strengthen bonds between neighbors. That year, however, the event became a flashpoint for long-standing grievances. When the HOA announced plans to charge an additional fee to cover costs associated with renting tables, chairs, and entertainment, many residents balked. Some saw the move as unnecessary given existing dues, while others resented the implication that lower-income families might be priced out of attending. Tempers flared as attendees gathered around the refreshment stand, transforming what should have been a joyful occasion into a heated public forum. Amidst mounting unrest, alliances began to form. On one side stood staunch defenders of the status quo, those who believed strict adherence to rules ensured Serenity Heights retained its allure and value proposition. They argued that compromise risked diluting the community's identity and opening the door to unchecked individualism. Opposing them were reform advocates calling for greater flexibility and inclusivity. These residents championed revising outdated policies, fostering open communication channels, and democratizing decision-making processes to reflect diverse perspectives. By autumn, it was clear that Serenity Heights was teetering on the brink of transformation, or turmoil. Lines were drawn, friendships tested, and loyalties questioned. What began as isolated grumbles had morphed into organized resistance, signaling a reckoning long overdue. Whether the community could navigate this period of upheaval intact remained uncertain, but one thing was undeniable: the days of quiet complacency were over. The spark that ignited the firestorm. It was a crisp October evening when the fragile peace of Serenity Heights shattered irreparably. The catalyst. A seemingly innocuous proposal to install solar panels on rooftops, a measure touted as both environmentally responsible and cost-effective. To many, it represented progress. To others, it symbolized an unacceptable departure from tradition. The ensuing clash would expose deep-seated divisions and ignite a firestorm of conflict that threatened to consume the entire community. The idea originated with Rachel Meyer, a software engineer and mother of two who had recently joined the HOA board. Passionate about sustainability, Rachel spearheaded the initiative after witnessing firsthand how rising energy costs strained household budgets. She envisioned a future where every home in Serenity Heights could harness renewable energy, reducing utility bills while contributing to global efforts to combat climate change. With the support of a small coalition of like-minded residents, she presented her case at a special board meeting convened to discuss potential community-wide upgrades. Rachel's proposal included detailed financial projections demonstrating long-term savings, as well as letters of endorsement from local environmental groups. She emphasized that federal tax incentives and rebates could offset installation expenses, making the project accessible even to those hesitant about upfront costs. Moreover, she argued that embracing solar technology would position Serenity Heights as a leader among suburban communities, enhancing its reputation and property values. But not everyone shared her enthusiasm. From the moment Rachel unveiled her plan, opposition materialized almost instantly. Leading the charge was Charles Whitmore, a retired real estate developer and longtime resident whose influence within the HOA rivaled Rachel's idealism. Charles dismissed the proposal as impractical and aesthetically displeasing, claiming that bulky solar arrays would mar the neighborhood's carefully curated appearance. He also raised concerns about resale value, insisting that prospective buyers might view solar-equipped homes as unconventional or undesirable. Charles's stance resonated with a faction of older, wealthier homeowners who prized conformity above innovation. Their objections soon escalated into personal attacks, accusing Rachel and her supporters of pushing an agenda that disregarded the wishes of the majority. Social media platforms buzzed with vitriolic comments, anonymous posts mocking, tree-hugging liberals, and accusations of elitism hurled back and forth. What began as a rational discussion devolved into a shouting match, both online and offline. Tensions reached a boiling point during the next HOA meeting, held in the cramped confines of the clubhouse auditorium. Dozens of residents packed the space, spilling into hallways and crowding around windows to catch glimpses of the proceedings inside. Emotions ran high as speakers alternated between impassioned pleas for green initiatives and vehement rejections of anything perceived as disruptive to the status quo. Rachel pleaded for calm, urging her peers to consider the broader implications of their choices, but her words were drowned out by jeers and interruptions. In a pivotal moment, Charles took the floor, his voice booming with authority. "This isn't just about solar panels," he declared. "It's about control. Who gets to decide what happens here? If we let this slide, what's next? Wind turbines? Chicken coops? Where does it end?" His rhetoric struck a chord with his allies, galvanizing them to rally behind his vision of preservation. Meanwhile, Rachel countered with equal fervor. "We can't keep clinging to the past while the world moves forward," she argued. "Our children deserve better than outdated thinking and empty promises. Solar power isn't just a trend, it's a necessity. Are we really willing to sacrifice our future for the sake of appearances?" As tempers flared, so too did the stakes. The debate spilled beyond the confines of the meeting room, spilling into private conversations, text messages, and emails. Friendships fractured under the weight of conflicting ideologies. Longtime neighbors stopped speaking altogether, exchanging icy glares instead of greetings. Parents pulled their kids from playdates hosted by opponents, creating invisible barriers that divided streets and cul-de-sacs. Even attempts at mediation proved futile. When a neutral third party, a mediator recommended by the County Housing Authority, tried to broker a compromise, both sides dug in their heels. Rachel proposed a pilot program limited to 10 households, hoping to demonstrate feasibility without forcing widespread adoption. Charles countered with demands for stricter enforcement of existing rules, effectively doubling down on resistance to change. Neither side budged, leaving the mediator exasperated and the community more polarized than ever. By the time the meeting adjourned late into the night, there was little doubt that Serenity Heights had entered uncharted territory. What had started as a disagreement over solar panels had morphed into something far larger, a referendum on values, priorities, and identity. The question looming over everyone was stark and unavoidable: could this fractured community find a way to heal, or would the scars run too deep to mend? The turning point, bridging divides through dialogue. The aftermath of the explosive HOA meeting left Serenity Heights reeling. Residents retreated to their corners, nursing wounds inflicted by harsh words and entrenched positions. Yet amid the acrimony, a small group of concerned citizens refused to surrender hope. Among them was Maria Alvarez, a soft-spoken librarian whose calm demeanor masked a fierce determination to restore harmony. Recognizing that neither side could prevail through sheer force of will, Maria proposed an unconventional solution: a series of informal, structured dialogues aimed at fostering understanding rather than winning arguments. Her idea gained traction after she approached key figures from both camps, including Rachel Meyer and Charles Whitmore. Initially skeptical, they agreed to participate, buoyed by whispers of exhaustion rippling through the community. People were tired, not just of fighting, but of feeling unheard. Maria framed the initiative as a chance to step back from the brink, emphasizing that true progress required listening as much as speaking. With tentative buy-in secured, she enlisted the help of a professional facilitator experienced in conflict resolution to guide the process. The first session took place in the neutral setting of the local library's community room, deliberately chosen to signal openness and inclusivity. Attendees arrived cautiously, wary of encountering hostility. But as they settled into chairs arranged in a circle, a deliberate move to eliminate hierarchical seating arrangements, the atmosphere shifted. The facilitator opened with a simple yet powerful exercise. Each person introduced themselves by sharing one thing they loved about Serenity Heights. Responses ranged from heartfelt tributes to the neighborhood's natural beauty to nostalgic anecdotes about block parties and impromptu barbecues. By the time the introductions concluded, the tension in the air had softened, replaced by a palpable sense of shared history. From there, the conversation turned to the root causes of the conflict. Guided by the facilitator, participants explored why solar panels, and by extension, other changes, elicited such strong reactions. For Charles and his allies, the issue wasn't solely about aesthetics. It tapped into fears of losing control over the character of their beloved community. Meanwhile, Rachel and her supporters articulated their frustration with what they perceived as resistance to necessary evolution, driven by a desire to leave a sustainable legacy for future generations. Hearing these perspectives allowed humanized opposing viewpoints, revealing underlying anxieties and aspirations that transcended superficial disagreements. Over subsequent sessions, the group tackled thornier topics, such as financial transparency, rule enforcement, and representation within the HOA board. Each discussion followed a set format designed to encourage empathy and collaboration. Participants used I statements to express feelings without assigning blame, listened actively without interrupting, and brainstormed solutions collectively. Gradually, patterns emerged. Both sides acknowledged flaws in current systems. Opaque decision-making processes alienated residents, while rigid rules stifled creativity and adaptability. These shared insights laid the groundwork for compromise. The breakthrough came during the fourth meeting, when Charles surprised everyone by suggesting a trial period for rooftop solar installations. "Let's test this on a smaller scale," he said, surprising even himself with his willingness to bend. "If it works, great. If not, we reassess." Rachel seized the opportunity, proposing a hybrid model that combined solar adoption with enhanced landscaping standards to maintain. Over subsequent sessions, the group tackled thornier topics, such as financial transparency, rule enforcement, and representation within the HOA board. Each discussion followed a set format designed to encourage empathy and collaboration. Participants used I statements to express feelings without assigning blame, listened actively without interrupting, and brainstormed solutions collectively. Gradually, patterns emerged. Both sides acknowledged flaws in current systems. Opaque decision-making processes alienated residents, while rigid rules stifled creativity and adaptability. These shared insights laid the groundwork for compromise. The breakthrough came during the fourth meeting, when Charles surprised everyone by suggesting a trial period for rooftop solar installations. "Let's test this on a smaller scale," he said, surprising even himself with his willingness to bend. "If it works, great. If not, we reassess." Rachel seized the opportunity, proposing a hybrid model that combines solar adoption with enhanced landscaping standards to maintain visual cohesion. Other attendees chimed in with refinements, such as establishing a rotating committee to oversee implementation and ensure accountability. What began as mistrust evolved into cautious optimism. By the final session, participants had drafted a preliminary agreement outlining steps toward reconciliation. Key provisions included revising the HOA handbook to prioritize clarity and flexibility, introducing term limits for board members to prevent stagnation, and creating a community innovation fund to support eco-friendly projects vetted by residents. Perhaps most importantly, the group committed to regular check-ins to address emerging issues collaboratively, preventing future disputes from spiraling out of control. Though far from perfect, the resolution marked a turning point. As attendees filed out of the library that evening, handshakes replaced crossed arms, and tentative smiles hinted at renewed possibility. The road ahead remained uncertain, but for the first time in months, Serenity Heights dared to imagine a future defined not by division, but by unity forged through honest dialogue. Lessons learned: the path forward for Serenity Heights. The journey through conflict and reconciliation in Serenity Heights underscores timeless truths about the delicate balance between regulation and freedom within communal living spaces. At its core, the saga reveals that harmony is not achieved through uniformity but through a dynamic interplay of structure and autonomy. The HOA's original purpose, to preserve order and foster a cohesive aesthetic, remains valid, yet it becomes counterproductive when wielded as a tool of exclusion or rigidity. The solar panel controversy illuminated this paradox. Stringent rules designed to protect property values risk alienating residents if they stifle innovation and ignore evolving societal values. A thriving community requires governance that adapts alongside its members, striking a balance between safeguarding shared interests and respecting individual agency. Transparency emerges as another cornerstone of successful HOA management. The erosion of trust in Serenity Heights stemmed largely from opaque decision-making processes and financial ambiguity. Residents need mechanisms that ensure accountability, whether through regular audits, open forums, or participatory budget reviews. Equally critical is fostering inclusive communication channels that empower all voices, not just those aligned with leadership. The mediated dialogues demonstrated how structured conversations can bridge divides, reminding us that even deeply entrenched disagreements often stem from misunderstandings or unmet needs. By prioritizing empathy and active listening, communities can transform adversarial relationships into partnerships rooted in mutual respect. Looking ahead, Serenity Heights stands poised to embrace a new era of HOA governance, one grounded in flexibility, equity, and collective stewardship. Implementing term limits for board members, as agreed upon during the resolution sessions, ensures fresh perspectives and prevents entrenchment of power. Similarly, the creation of the Community Innovation Fund signals a commitment to exploring sustainable practices that align with modern priorities while maintaining neighborhood charm. These measures reflect a broader shift toward policies that are proactive rather than reactive, addressing challenges before they escalate into crises. Ultimately, the story of Serenity Heights serves as both cautionary tale and blueprint for other communities navigating similar tensions. It reminds us that the strength of any HOA lies not in its ability to impose conformity but in its capacity to inspire collaboration. When residents view themselves as co-creators of their environment rather than passive recipients of rules, the result is a vibrant, resilient community capable of weathering storms together. As Serenity Heights moves forward, its experience offers a hopeful reminder: even amidst discord, there exists the potential for renewal, and unity forged through struggle is often the strongest bond of all. Ask. Explain.